Alrighty, we are going to put together some meatloaf. Just a standard American meatloaf for a family of 4, we'll call it today. I have about 2 pounds of meat here. I broke up that box a little earlier, and this is going to make a meatloaf about that big. I have 3 eggs that I'm going to put in. The oven is preheating to 350, and I will check on that and make sure. A piece of shard going. I think we're okay. There it is. I have a large onion chopped up. You can actually saute that first if you'd like. I'm just going to put it in like that. And I have a fairly small chop because my family's not like huge on onions. Need a clove of garlic, and I'm going to do cheddar garlic. This is already mooshed and easy to dispense. And roughly a tablespoon size is going to be a clove, more or less. Alrighty, and then I have, see if I remember this correctly, 3 tablespoons of ketchup and a tablespoon and a half of Worcestershire, you know, this stuff. And I'm just going to put those in. I was trying to make sure everything was measured because I have the recipe on my phone and I can't do both at the same time because I'm still learning how to deal with my camera as it is. And I am rinsing as I go. Alright, so that was the ketchup and the Worcestershire. I have some milk. This is like 6 tablespoons of milk. I think I remember that correctly. Again, I will have the recipe up in the comments. And I need a 1.5 cups of breadcrumbs. You can actually tear up bread. You can tear up some toast. There's a bunch of different ways. This is just really handy if you have them in the cabinet. So that's a cup. And a half. Alright, that is all of the ingredients for the inside. And I am going to use the most popular kitchen item you can, which is my hands, to mix this all together. And yes, it's gooky, and it feels weird, but it's going to get this done the most quick without making a mess, and make sure everything's nicely mixed. So I can feel breadcrumbs in the bottom of the bowl, so I'm kind of flipping things over. Look. I can feel the milk and making sure that we're getting everything incorporated nicely. You can actually hide vegetables in here fairly easily. Try not to warm this with my hands too much. The meat is an 80-20, so it's going to produce some fat as it cooks, but it's not a terrible one, and it's kind of our family favorite with the mixture of both how much fat it is versus how much it lets off juices. And that is my oven coming up to heat, and let's see. So I'm just making a loaf. It's going to fit in my pan here. And a little bit more. I'm literally just shaping a loaf, and I am kind of keeping it out of the bottom so that when it lets off all of its juices all over the place, it's not going to be like all in there. And let me wash my hands again. Let me grab one of these, and I'm going to do some of the smaller ones. We're going to have too many. Let's see. We're going to go with about free. Because I just don't quite have the right amount for this pan. All right. That was my largest ice cream scoop that I used. And now we are going to top this. And I go really, really simple. Just so you know, we're going to top this with ketchup. Nothing but ketchup. And we do it now. And it's going to have time to caramelize on top of it while it's cooking for roughly 50 minutes. And I don't measure particularly, I just kind of eyeball it. So let's start with that. And I am going to use a basting brush. I've got a silicone one. I've got a couple of these. So these are nice and handy to just kind of smooth this out. I could use a spoon. You can go heavier or lighter on this, but basically the heat of the oven is kind of key to making this taste right. I am not a big ketchup fan, but this recipe is one of those where it's just not right without it. So I'm just gonna give these a little basting, and then I am going to wash this very thoroughly before I do anything else with it, since it's touching raw meat. That's ketchup. Alright, now I have ketchup on my fingers. Ew. Alright. And that's looking good, but I want to get it all along the sides as well, so I'm going to go with a little bit more. So that I can get a nice glaze. The reason this works is that ketchup is actually a lot of sugar with seasonings and a very little tomato. I've actually made ketchup with my kids many, many years ago, and it is a laborious process for what comes out to be a nice tasting thing, but frankly, you know, your standard Heinz ketchup is perfectly fine, especially if you like those seasonings that traditionally come in ketchup. And there are actually different kinds. You can actually make ketchup out of other things. Like I said, I've never particularly been a fan, but this recipe is literally one of those where it just kind of needs it. Alrighty, we're going to throw this into a 350 oven, and I am preheated. And this one is definitely going to go for 50 minutes. These might go for 30, so I'm going to check them in 30 minutes and then come back. And when they come out, they'll be nicely cooked all the way through, and this will be a dark red glaze on the top. And I, at that chance, could, when I check on these at 30 minutes, I might add more ketchup if I think it needs a thicker layer. I tend to go for a relatively thin layer. Oof, nice and hot. Let's go in and set our timer for 30 minutes to start, and then we will check again and probably do the additional 20 minutes for everything else for the big one. And I am going to be serving this with some beef gravy that I have from a jar in the cabinet, and homemade mashed potatoes, which I'll make another time for you. Anyway, that is a super quick meatloaf for a family of 4 or more. Again, my family, a bunch of men who eat like, you know, there's no tomorrow. So anyway, here they are cooking. Let's not let the heat out too much. All right, it's nice and hot. Alrighty, kids, we'll talk to you next time, and have a good dinner.